The Oneacademy is the heart of our company. Cryptocurrency is not an easy product. It's a very innovative product based on technology and based on very, very complex concepts. For us to be part of this financial revolution, to be part of cryptocurrency and of a community, we need to understand exactly what we do and what we talk about. And this is why we have the Oneacademy. The Oneacademy provides you with concepts, provides you with explanation on cryptocurrency and on the financial world. I would encourage everybody to join the courses, to do the certificates, and to understand thoroughly how to use cryptocurrency, what cryptocurrency is, and how we can change the world by using cryptocurrency. Oneacademy. Learn today, lead tomorrow.
For the last few days, we have had some very thought-provoking videos, starting with those presented by Diamonds Ivan and Michelle Mark, as they relate to the need to let go, as well as the power of love and determination. And in that second video, what particularly struck me was the fact that the young lady was already prepared with the talent, prepared herself to be ready for the opportunity, and was determined to sit there all day if it was necessary to embrace and take advantage of that opportunity. It has been said that luck is laboring under correct knowledge, and I think that video brought that out to me, and hopefully to many of us, very, very strongly. The presentation done by Kester Beale yesterday with hacking our brains, and it's something that Robin Sharma talks a lot about in many of his videos, and he advocates getting up before 5, and he runs something called the 20-20 protocol. The first 20 minutes is where you would do a lot of heavy sweating, and this tends to generate dopamine as well as serotonin, two of the brain chemicals that I believe Kester Beale would have made reference to yesterday, oxytocin being the other one. But one of the things that Robin talks about is this business of brain drive neurotrophic factor that also regenerates the brain cells. But we will get into things like that in another session, because all of these things are important when we confront the notion of how to handle haters. Believe it or not, there may be some people, and we have to examine ourselves, who actually may be hacking our brains and generating the serotonin and dopamine on the basis of hate. And because the body cannot determine the difference between a real or an imagined experience, the results are still the same. And Dr. Joe Dispenza's video talked about that. And in another place, he says that 60,000 of our thoughts are what we generate on a daily basis, and approximately 90 to 95% of them are the same from the day before. So it's very important that we let go. It is important that we embrace the power of love and determination and develop those as habits, as protocols, as routines. And finally, that we align that in a way that allows our brains to be hacked correctly, generating the serotonin, the dopamine, and the oxytocin in line with our highest priorities, in line with our highest selves, the best versions of ourselves, and ultimately delivering value and magic to the world. I would now wish to share my screen and get busy, as it were, with the video presentation. How I handle haters. This is a perspective gleaned from Robin, and I will be running a video shortly that speaks and more eloquently than I can about it. And I really thought that haters was just a word. I didn't realize that one can make an acronym out of it. And I'm just going to leave this up for a bit so that perhaps we can take note and be sure that we are not having anger towards everyone reaching success. We can have anger towards each other. We can have anger towards ourselves, excuse me, reaching success. And we have had many haters in this journey on the One Life path. And when we look at life, we think, and we should know that this is something that we will continue to confront as long as we are alive. The question is, what do we do and how do we handle it? I'm going to ask Mr. Robin Sharma now in this video presentation to tell us all about that. Let's go back to the video.
Hi, it's Robin Sharma, author of the 5 a.m. Club, and I'm really honored that you've taken the time and given me the gift of your attention to be here with me in this mastery session. You are going to love this one. It's called How I Handle Haters. So as an author for so many years and shooting these kinds of videos and giving leadership presentations across the planet for over 23 years, once in a while I have someone who will throw a stone at me. And you as a creative person, as you bring your magic to the world, you will have people who misunderstand you, because every visionary is initially ridiculed before they are revered. And you will have naysayers, and you will have cynics and critics. And so I wanted to shoot this mastery session for you to show you how I handle the critics so that you can keep your momentum towards your mighty ambition. So I've deconstructed the model. This comes from my own processing, my own journaling, because sometimes, it'll hurt me. I'm a human being. As a creative person, I can be sensitive. I want to do great things for as many people as possible. And so sometimes criticism stings. And so, as I so often do in my morning routine, I head to my journal and I process and I just and the first one, authors on Harry Potter, and I think she said, for some to love you, some must loathe you. And as I wrote about it in my journal and meditated on it, I realized what makes us human is we love different things. Some people like pomodoro pasta. Other people like sushi. Some people like steaks. Some people like empanadas. We all like different things, and that's what makes us so interesting as human beings. And so as a creative person, as a leader, as a value distributor, just remember that for some to love you, some must loathe you. There's no way in the world you're going to put your magic out into the world and everyone's going to love that. And so part of the journey as a creative leader is to just get comfortable being criticized and to sort of bulletproof yourself and strengthen your own inner core through perhaps journaling, meditation, prayer, reading, working with a spiritual counselor, an emotional counselor. Do that inner work required so you become so strong in your own skin, nothing can take you off of your mission, and you take the stones your critics throw at you and you build them into monuments of creativity, productivity, possibility that inspire the rest of humanity. The second element of the troll deconstruction is called the Jay-Z insight. So I'm a fan of Jay-Z, and I remember reading one of his biographies, and in it he said this. He said, I knew I was getting traction in the culture, and I knew I was winning with my music when people started to come out of nowhere and hate all over me. And that insight is a relevant one for you as someone who's trying to produce your productivity. And maybe you're a coder, maybe you're a startup entrepreneur, maybe you're a manager in a company. No matter what it is that you do, you are an artist. And Jay-Z is a musical artist. You might be an artist of coding, or you might be an artist of entrepreneurship. But just remember, you know you're winning when you start attracting haters. The third element of the troll deconstruction is simply this: great poetry terrifies the herd. I want you to think about that one. Great poetry terrifies the herd. Now you're saying, Robin, what the heck does that one mean? Well, one of my favorite cities on the planet is Barcelona. And I remember one day I was walking through the Born district, I love getting lost in different cities. It's a great education to travel our tiny planet. So I was walking through the Born district and I was just looking around and being inspired by the architecture and looking at the people and just fully present in the moment, and I stumbled upon this amazing Picasso museum. So I walk in and I start looking at Picasso's art, and I'm a great fan of art. And I look at the art and I study the art and I make notes about the art and I'm provoked by the art. And towards the end of my visit through the Picasso Museum, I see this plaque on the wall. And here's what it said: people were disturbed by the genius of Picasso. And that insight has remained with me as an artist for so many years. Great poetry, when you do anything disruptive, anything original, it's going to be laughed at. It's going to scare people. It's going to threaten people because the majority, the status quo, the herd, they are standing on the foundations of the truths they believe are true. And so anything that disrupts it, whether it's a new business, whether it's new art, whether it's a book that challenges people, it's much easier to shoot the messenger than to embrace the message. When the 5 a.m. Club first came out, it was such a disruptive book. The models like the 10 Rituals of Daily Genius and the Twin Cycles of Elite Performance, which actually suggests rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. The whole 5 a.m. protocol that I teach in the book, the 20-20-20 formula, the whole idea of getting up before the sun so that you bulletproof your interior life based on the Spartan warrior saying, sweat more in training and you'll bleed less in war, was a scary thought to people who don't want to change. And so some of the early readers of the book went on to social media and started knocking down the book until something really interesting happened. Enough people read the 5 a.m. Club to sort of rewrite the whole perception. And I reached a critical mass where people started saying, here's the results I'm getting, here's how I feel, here's what it's doing for me productively, creatively, in my business, in my life, or even for my spirituality. And then the tide completely changed. The larger point for you is to simply remember, bring your magic and originality to the world, but when you do, just understand that it's going to terrify people. If you look at the great visionaries, Nikola Tesla, Shakespeare, Nelson Mandela, you look at some of the great musical artists, whether it was Madonna or Lady Gaga, or look at some of the great artists like Jean-Michel Basquiat or Rembrandt or Monet. These people were all misunderstood. I remember watching a movie. Willem Dafoe stars in it. And the movie's called The Gates of Eternity or something like that. And it's the story of Van Gogh's life. And did you know Van Gogh did not sell one painting while he was alive? And I remember one scene in particular in this film. Van Gogh was committed to an insane asylum. And the person who's running this insane asylum pulls Van Gogh out of the crowd and has a one-on-one conversation with him. And the person who's running the insane asylum has a bunch of Van Gogh's drawings. And he shows the drawings to Van Gogh. And he says, Vincent, do you really think this is art? And Van Gogh says, yes, I think it's art. And I think it's very beautiful. And the person who is running the insane asylum says, do you really think this is art? Because he thought it was garbage. And Van Gogh, because he was so invested in his truth, artists like Jean-Michel Basquiat or Rembrandt or Monet. These people were all misunderstood. I remember watching a movie. Willem Dafoe stars in it, and the movie's called The Gates of Eternity or something like that. And it's the story of Van Gogh's life. And did you know Van Gogh did not sell one painting while he was alive? And I remember one scene in particular in this film. Van Gogh was committed to an insane asylum. And the person who's running this insane asylum pulls Van Gogh out of the crowd and has a one-on-one conversation with him. And the person who's running the insane asylum has a bunch of Van Gogh's drawings. And he shows the drawings to Van Gogh. And he says, "Vincent, do you really think this is art?" And Van Gogh says, "Yes, I think it's art. And I think it's very beautiful." And the person who is running the insane asylum says, "Do you really think this is art?" Because he thought it was garbage. And Van Gogh, because he was so invested in his truth, he said, "Yes, this is art." And interestingly enough, Van Gogh only became Van Gogh after he was dead. I mean, often great art only is revered decades after the artist has gone. Which brings me to the fourth element of the troll deconstruction. Advanced art is always misunderstood. So I am a fan of Jean-Michel Basquiat. I just love his graffiti-style art. I remember watching a documentary on Jean-Michel Basquiat, and one of the people who ran, I believe it was the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, she talked about the fact that initially they wouldn't allow Basquiat's art in the museum. And here's what he was told. His art is not good enough to be in our museum. And now if you look at Basquiat, his work sells, one of them sold for over $100 million. Think about Basquiat when you release your magic out in the world. You will be misunderstood. You will be attacked. You will be laughed at. You will be discounted. You must continue at all costs. Let me put it to you this way, if I may, and I want you to really think about this right now. I'm going to challenge you to think about this. I want your faith in your magic to be bigger than your fears, so that no matter what stones people throw at you, you will continue until the world understands the beauty that you're bringing to it. There's a Liam Gallagher song that says, "High flying birds get the first arrows." Isn't that true? When you leave the crowd, the flock of birds, you're going to get knocked down quickly, but that's the price of ambition. Makes me also think of Bob Dylan, and I learned this from another documentary I watched, and he said, "Don't criticize what you don't understand. Don't criticize what you don't understand." So advanced art is always misunderstood before it's appreciated. Fifth element of the troll deconstruction, you might love this one. Happy people never hate. So the way we are in the world is a profound reflection of the way we are with ourselves. Our self-relationship sets up every other relationship. Our relationship with our family, our relationship with our team, our relationship with our customers, our relationship with our suppliers, our relationships with strangers on the street. I was doing a tour of someplace on the planet, a region on the planet, and I was in an elevator, and I said hello to the person, "Where are you from?" And he looked at me and he said, "Where are you from?" And I thought maybe he misunderstood me, so I said, "Oh, I'm just curious, where are you from?" And I said that because I love connecting with people. His aggression was pretty stunning to me, and he said, "Maybe you don't understand English. I'm asking you where you're from." And I just realized this is not a person who is interested in any form of engagement. And I just said to him, "Oh, I'm just trying to be friendly with you." And I left the elevator. And as I left the elevator, in another language, I think he was swearing at me for whatever reason. And that's okay, because people do the best that they can based on where they're at on the journey of their lifetime. And I'm not going to judge that person as bad. He's just doing the best that he can. The larger point for you and I is, People behave the way they are in private. And every single thing you see someone doing is really a reflection of what's going on with them. And so people who hate on other people are just not in a very good place in their lives. Because if they were full of energy, if they were in hot pursuit of their mighty mission, if they had great family lives and they were in great health, and if they're pursuing their maximum creativity, productivity, and performance, they would be full of joy, and they would be spreading and radiating that possibility to every single person they meet. Sixth element of the troll deconstruction is high road focus. Take the high road. I would suggest if anyone tries to knock you down, if people hate at you, if people give you these comments, or if people laugh at you when you share your big idea, focus on your mission. Why dilute your energy by wasting it on dealing with and feeding the trolls? And let karma do your dirty work. Let world class be your revenge. And I'm not saying we should be in the business of revenge, but just stay monomaniacally focused on your priorities. And over time, it's amazing what happens when you put great work and great value and magic and love and mastery out into the world. The tide will change. People will appreciate you. You will feel great about the service you bring to society. And what is more important than that? So I want to thank you so much for being here with me in this mastery session. I take so much time to handcraft them so that you receive great value.
Okay, I have chosen to stop the video at this point. Robin then tends to go on to talk a bit more about some of his work in terms of his books and so on. And we are trying to keep this call on time. So I would want to now move into what I consider to be key ideas that emerged out of this presentation. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of them. And I've sought basically to list a few of them on these slides. Whoever is trying to bring you down is already below you. So there's no need to engage in a race to the bottom. Every visionary is initially ridiculed before they are revered. So we look forward basically to the day when Dr. Ruja and her brother will be revered. That's just going to happen. We have to acknowledge that we are humans and we do carry blood in our veins, at least most of us, hopefully. And sticks and stones may break my bones, but names and words will never hurt me. That's something that I remember reciting as a child, but somehow as I became an adult, I realized that there was a profound mistruth, if that's a word, or untruth surrounding this particular nursery rhyme. Criticism does sting. The question is, how do we deal with it to ensure that our magic and our mastery is not stung? And then, of course, he went into the troll deconstruction model and the 6 characteristics comprising same, the J.K. Rowling principle. I thought this was interesting. For some to love you, some must loathe you. And we love different things. But the question that was coming up in my head is, am I a leader and value distributor, or am I a follower and someone who lives off the value production of others? Criticism is something we simply have to get comfortable with, and there are some things here that we can do depending on your disposition and appetite. I particularly like the WMD, and it's not weapons for mass destruction, but rather a whiteboard for mind direction. Another set of words for what is commonly called a dream board. Use the stones that would be thrown at you to build monuments of creativity, productivity, and possibility. Can anyone tell me if you've ever seen monuments built to critics and to haters? The second component of the troll deconstruction model, the Jay-Z insight. And this I found to be interesting. When do you know that you're winning? He was able to determine that when people came out of nowhere and became now here and hate all over him, that's when he knew that he was winning. And this led me to get this picture that most haters are stuck in a poisonous mental prison of jealousy and self-doubt that blinds them to their own potentiality. We need to continue to be artists, to be merchants of wow. The key question here, will you let your artistry die inside of you and enrich the cemetery instead? Key idea of the troll deconstruction model, idea number 3, great poetry terrifies the herd. We may recall that he said that people were disturbed by the genius of Picasso. Are we people or sheeple? Am I a person or a sheepson? Anything original, disruptive, or creative will be laughed at. That's just how it is. And then he said something that got to me. The herd is, and I put, perhaps you can reflect on it, always standing on the foundations of the truths they believe are true. Another way of saying it is, are those truths true, or are they simply someone else's opinions that we have accepted as truth? It's easier to shoot the messengers than embrace the message. But many times after we have left the planet, the message then edifies the messenger. We want to encourage everyone to bring your magic and originality to the world. And it will terrify people. We have to get used to that. But unless we plan to enrich the cemetery and do a disservice to ourselves, especially when we get to the last hour of our last day on our deathbed, we would want to know that we are going to our graves fully used up. Item number 4, advanced art is always misunderstood. So I accept, albeit grudgingly still, that I will be laughed at. I will be misunderstood, discounted, dismissed, perhaps even discarded. But will I embrace the challenge to maintain a faith in my magic and that which my Creator has granted unto me? That faith that surmounts, surpasses, and exceeds the ongoing chatter and murmuring of my fears. High-flying birds get the first arrows. We know another way. Only the trees that have the good fruit receive the interest of persons with stones to be thrown at it. We need to understand. We have to seek first to understand. But many of us, and I was at that stage at one point in time, criticized things that I did not understand, and then was forced to retract that criticism when I did get to understand what it was about. Item 5, happy people never hate. Another way that it is said is that hurting people hurt people. Excuse me. In this aspect of the video, it became clear that the self relationships sets up every other relationship. What is your relationship to yourself? We need to remember that people are doing the best they can on where they're at on the journey of their lifetime, so that people will continue to be challenged by what one life represents, because they don't understand it, they haven't taken the time to do it, and they are simply responding the best they can based on where they are. Unhappy people breed unhappiness, so we would want to keep away from them when it comes to our business. But we need to be polite even as we do that. This was another thing that led me to a reflection on the 7 habits of highly effective people. This business of people's behavior, in public being a reflection of what it is in private. My ancestors, my forebears, used to say that what you practice at home, you carry abroad. And I'm sure in the other parts of the world, there are different ways of saying the same thing, but I think the idea is very, very clearly espoused. And last but not least, he talked about the high road focus. Take the high road. A very famous former First Lady once said, when they go low, we should go high. And to do that, we must focus on our mission. Another brother of mine says we should run in your lanes. We are all appointed and assigned lanes to run in. And let karma do your dirty work. Les Brown says in one of his presentations, I think it's the keys to self-motivation, he talks about there's no greater revenge than massive success. Massive success typically is world-class success. And yet our focus is our mission and not revenge. Our focus is monomaniacally on our priorities. And if we are to do that and ensure we're not going to have a bad time, we need to stop feeding the trolls in whatever way, shape, or form they present themselves in. So let's do everyone a favor. We need to build upon the haters. We actually need new ones because they're going to start sounding just like you. When they have come to understand, when they have come to appreciate the magic that is being displayed, and then now are forced to confront why they themselves have not elected to take the high road and bring their own magic to the world and become a hero in the process to someone else.